After 10, and our next guest is Sõzarn Barday. She's a writer and attorney based in South Africa and has a particular interest in human rights within the Middle East. And I'm so pleased that we have her here online today to talk about what's playing out currently in the Middle East, very especially by apartheid Israel and their acts on obviously Iran, how that is going to have an impact on the rest of the Middle East, and of course that doesn't mean that that they have now stopped their genocidal activities on Gaza. Sadly, that continues on the one hand, and they're also now busy with a war on Iran, a war that they have declared by their illegal actions. And of course, as always, the Western community is totally silent on this matter simply because, once again, it's an issue regarding the affairs of brown people in the Middle East. So let's get talking with Sõzarn, who is an attorney and an activist with deep interest in Mid-Eastern affairs. Assalamu alaikum to you. Welcome to the program.
Walaikum salam, and thank you for having me.
Lovely to have you here. Sõzarn, you've called Israel's attack on Iran a breach of international law. How does this offensive reflect Israel's ongoing pattern of aggression in the region, especially towards those who support Palestine?
Well, Israel's attack, it's not an isolated event. It actually fits in a long-standing pattern of preemptive strikes, regional destabilization, and complete disregard for international law norms. Whether we are looking at Lebanon, Syria, or Gaza, Israel has routinely used military force against actors it basically perceives as who are supporting Palestinian rights and the resistance. Now, targeting Iran, a country that has openly aligned itself and unwavering aligned itself with the Palestinian cause, it basically reinforces the message that Israel will use force not only within its immediate borders, but also across the region to any state or individual or organization that is in solidarity with Palestine. So essentially, Israel's attack, it's not, so much about the military strategy here. It's more so about asserting dominance, silencing the political and the ideological support for the Palestinian liberation as a whole.
And the Western world are completely silent, if not quietly complicit with with Israel. I think it is absolutely outrageous, but the Western world sees it otherwise. There are rumors that Trump and Keir Starmer are supporting this fully. In fact, there are also rumors that Trump has called for the assassination or the killing of the leader of Iran, Khamenei. But let's move on with our other questions regarding this latest atrocity by foreigners in the Middle East. People who don't belong there, who claim that God had promised them this land, which is supposedly rightfully theirs, and they can act as as fiercely as they want to other forces or other governments in the Middle East, and the rest of the world is quiet and indeed complicit. Now, we also know that civilian areas in Iran were hit during these strikes. Why is this significant, and how does it echo in the way Israel has repeatedly targeted civilian infrastructure in Gaza and the West Bank?
So essentially, striking civilian areas, it's a grave breach of international humanitarian law. And this basically essentially boils down to the principle of distinction. Now, principle of distinction in international law, it basically obligates parties who are in conflict to differentiate between military and civilian targets. So Israel's actions in Iran, it essentially mirrors its conduct in Gaza and the West Bank. Because essentially, Israel has been routinely bombing homes, schools, hospitals, water systems, you name it. It's bombing everything. And it bombs under the guise of targeting militants. Now, we all know Israel has routinely used this narrative of, oh, we're looking for Hamas. So, this is who I am referring to when I'm saying targeting militants. So, whether we are in Tehran or we are in Khan Yunis, the message is the same. Israel is willing to violate laws of war to achieve its objectives, and its objective is to colonize the region, to take all its resources, and to get rid of all the indigenous people or the inhabitants of the region.
People are also suggesting that this is also, apart from getting their hands on all of the resources in the region, but they're also wanting regime change in Iran. Would you agree that that might be one of the objectives?
So, I definitely cannot speak on that front, but what I will say is there is definitely a clear tone in terms of getting the resources within that region. I cannot speak for the regime change on that end, but definitely for resources, 100%.
How would you respond to Israel's claim that it was acting in self-defense? How can this be justified when Iran hadn't launched an attack? Does this then reflect a wider trend of Israel using security as an excuse to silence any resistance, especially Palestinian resistance?
So Israel's self-defense claim that doesn't hold any water in international law. Article 51 under the UN Charter specifically states that you are required to have an actual or imminent attack, neither of which has occurred. Instead, Israel has just basically continued to use this security as a cover for this unlawful aggression and framing all of this as, as framing all of this resistance as a threat to justify all of the violence and to avoid any accountability.
You mentioned that Iran supports the Palestinian cause. I think that's a wide known, accepted fact. Do you believe that this attack was really about nuclear threats, or was it about punishing Iran for standing with Palestine and the broader resistance movement?
So, the nuclear narrative, it's a convenient smokescreen, essentially. Um, Essentially, this strike, it appears to be more so about punishing Iran for its political alliances, particularly in its support for Palestine, the Palestinian resistance, as well as the regional movements that challenge Israel's, situation, Israel's, state, if you will. I don't like using that term because it is not a legitimate state in my eyes. And targeting Iran, it essentially sends a clear signal to others in the region. Support Palestine, and ultimately you will be next in terms of being on Israel's target list. It's a tactic of essentially deterrence by destruction, and it's basically essentially trying to isolate Palestinians as well as weaken the regional networks that stand by them, because we all know Iran stands unwaveringly behind behind Palestinians as well as the resistance movement as a whole.
Western governments often react strongly to other countries' actions, but when Israel bombs civilians or violates international law, there's silence. Why do you think there's such a clear double standard, and how does that affect the Palestinian struggle for justice?
Oh, this double standard narrative. The double standard, it's rooted in political alliances, strategic interests, if you will, and it's deeply entrenched in the narrative that frames Israel as the victim and Palestinians as the aggressors. The Western governments, especially the US and its allies, have essentially enabled Israel's impunity, whether it be through military aid, diplomatic shielding, and media narratives that essentially erase Palestinian sufferings. This selective outrage essentially erodes the credibility of international law, and it undermines the very institutions which are meant to uphold justice. For Palestinians, it reinforces the painful reality that their lives are treated as, as nothing. It's worthless, and it just essentially means also that their rights just are non-negotiable, which doesn't make sense. It doesn't hold any water.
Sad to say, it seems as if, apart from Iran and activists all around the world, that nobody else seems to care about the Palestinian situation. That being said, if Israel continues to act with impunity and faces no consequences, what message does that send to the Palestinians and others resisting occupation? Are we watching international law collapse when it comes to Palestine? One also questions then the roles of people like the World Health Organization and also the ICC and the ICJ. One wonders if there's ever going to be justice for Palestine.
We are definitely witnessing the collapse. Um, if not of the law itself, then certainly of the enforcement system. When I'm talking about enforcement system, I'm essentially talking about systems that hold individuals, states, and organizations accountable. When international law is applied inconsistently or ignored completely as a whole, it essentially sends a strong message that it is losing its moral authority and its practical utility. Impunity, it essentially, sure, it emboldens and further, signals to the Palestinians that the global community will not protect them. And it discourages peaceful and legal avenues for justice, essentially. People are not going to want to go through the legal avenue. They're going to want to take matters into their own hands, which we are slowly starting to see actually to unfold if we actually look at what is happening globally currently, if you have been watching the news and keeping up there. If the international system cannot uphold even the most basic norms in Palestine, it completely risks of becoming irrelevant, and just not needed, quite frankly.
I think that's where we leave it. Before I do let you go, your message today, the June 16th Youth Day, what do you have to say to the youth of South Africa?
To the youth of South Africa, I would definitely say you are the seeds of tomorrow. Always hold up your head high, be determined, be strong. Your future is bright, and don't let the global situation dampen your spirit. You are the spirit of tomorrow, and be the light moving forward.
Sõzarn Barday, a writer and attorney based in South Africa. she has a particular interest in human rights within the Middle East. Thank you indeed for your insights today and for your time. It's been wonderful talking to you. Go well, and assalamu alaikum to you.
Thank you for having me. Walaikum salam.
It's 20 past 10 on this public holiday in South Africa, June the 16th. Like Irfan Mangera had indicated, don't make it a day of braais, make it a day of deep introspection. Try and become a change agent yourself. See and look around you and do your part, play your part in making a change within your home, within your community. And of course, the ripple effect will then move out and go into the wider world, and keep up, keep Palestine uppermost in your mind. Let's just keep that flag flying as high as you can. And I think at the core of all of this is about humanitarianism. And we here at Salam Media are humanitarian journalism. We will continue telling these stories. We will continue letting the true voices be heard on the airwaves of Salam Media. And we will continue showcasing people that matter, people with a strong voice, people whose words will make a meaningful difference, not only in South Africa, but for Palestine and all um, undermined and subjugated communities around the world, like the Rohingya, like the Sudanese, like the people of Yemen, like the Uyghurs, like the Kashmiris, and many, many more. Allah accept from us, and let us truly lend our voices and our strength and our might to the trampled people of the world. That's it from me. Thank you indeed. Have a wonderful day. Take care on the roads. Till tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock. As always, Assalamu alaikum and Khuda Hafiz from me, Julie Ali.